On this episode 100, I have mortgage expert Dan Litvin, owner of Advantage Lending, speaking with us today. Welcome everyone to this episode of the AskJasonGelios show. I'm Jason Gelios, Michigan Realtor. I'm very excited. This is episode 100. It feels crazy to say that, right? Episode 100. That's 100 videos of just this show. Doesn't include the other videos that I do on YouTube and it's all about therealestate.com. Today I'm excited because I have mortgage expert Dan Litvin here, owner of Advantage Lending out of Rochester, Michigan. Dan, how are you?
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
I'm really happy to be here, Jason.
This is huge. For those of you who are either new to this show or don't know the backstory here, Dan here, when I say you're an expert, I truly mean it, because I have referred you people who got, for lack of better words, hurt from another loan officer because maybe they didn't have the right knowledge, they didn't have the background, the experience, things like that.
Yeah.
So before we dive into a bunch of awesome value content here that I have planned, share with our viewers a little bit about who you are and what you do.
For sure. What Jason said, my name is Dan Litvin. I'm the owner of Advantage Lending here in Rochester. I've been in the mortgage business since 2001 and started off at a really big bank, spent some time there, about 4 years, and went to the broker side, and sometime around 2007 things went south with that particular broker, and basically ended up becoming my own broker and have been since 2001.
Right. There's a lot of advantages of working with the boss versus just a loan officer, right? Just somebody who is in a cubicle all day.
Right.
You have a lot of knowledge and confidence, quite honestly, not only to help your clients, but to also get things done.
Yeah.
To be efficient and to make sure that at the end of the day, the home buyer gets their house, as long as they qualify, right?
As long as they qualify. That's
you have to qualify,
one, right?
still, though. You can't just be, okay, thanks, you know.
We've fit some square pegs and some semi-round holes,
to say the least.
And it's taken a little bit of pushing, but we've gotten some of those loans done. But yeah, so, you know, in doing this, I think some of the advantages that I have, here versus some other places is, one, yes, I am the owner of Advantage Lending, but two, I am also the loan officer. And basically, it's not a matter of handing off a file and letting a junior associate or a newly licensed loan officer work on yours.
Right.
I have the experience, and I'm going to be the one who's working on your loan. I'm going to be the one who's hands-on the whole time from start to finish, and basically from taking the application to getting everything together, submitting it to underwriting, getting your conditions cleared, and then ultimately getting you to the closing table and telling you what you need to bring to closing. So the whole time, I do have a small team, but interacting with me and my team, I'm still going to be hands-on the entire time and help you to get as efficiently as we can from application to keys at the table.
And it does happen. Believe me, I can tell you firsthand. There's been times where I've had you on the phone. We've been talking multiple times a week, and just hey, our client did this, got us this. Shouldn't have done this, but we fixed it. So expertise is everything. And then two, having the real world experience, being out there in the trenches, not sitting back like, okay, I'm gonna pass you off to Jane or Joe who's brand new.
Right.
I mean, buying a home is one of the biggest purchases most people will make, and so it really makes a lot of sense to choose the right professional. One of the questions I do have for you, Dan, is a lot of times home buyers contact agents first, right? Hey, I love this house, or I want to go out and look. And the first question I ask, okay, great, are you pre-approved? So one of the first things, if you could explain to them too, our viewers, for those of you who don't know, is why is a pre-qualification, in my opinion, garbage?
I have seen some amazing limited levels of pre-qualifications.
Right.
I won't name any lenders, but some tremendously big, some of the biggest banking industries in our country. You have even posted on their website not ready to make full application, great, we'll issue you pre-approval.
That's scary.
Interested to just give us what your income is?
Right.
Next up, great, we'll still give you a pre-approval.
Right.
Ready to go all the way in and make application? Great, we'll give you a pre-approval. And it blows my mind. In fact, I think I did a share on that one time on Facebook of just showing, look at how limited information you could get or give to this particular lender and still obtain what they call a air quotes here, pre-approval, right?
Right.
So when we do a pre-approval, it really is it's a deep dive. It's not just what's your name, social, date of birth. We look at the whole thing. I go over everything, not just, everyone can figure out what their down payment is. Most people don't focus on closing costs. I like to go over that because at the end of the day, it's my job to make sure you know what you're bringing to closing. And it's not just your down payment. You got closing costs, prepaids, you got tax prorations back to the seller. A lot of things that, some other people in my industry might not even talk about. I mean, just for example, those tax prorations. It's not a mortgage-related cost. It's a real estate-related cost. And a lot of times that might get lost in the shuffle, and borrowers can show up to a closing saying, hey, why do I owe this much more? And it's like, well,
surprise,
you owe prorations back to the seller for these taxes. And it's like, well, they didn't really have that explained to them during their pre-approval or mortgage application process, and it's kind of sprung on them at the end. And unfortunately, it's actually one of those unlimited tolerance categories where you don't have to disclose it, and in the 11th hour you can still be surprised by it, and there's actually no negative consequences for that. So, but either way, when I do a pre-approval, it really is a deep dive. We go over credit, income, assets, your debt to income ratios. We figure out what loan is the right loan for you. And we also look at alternative options. Just give you an example. Sometimes student loans, that's a big one, right?
Huge topic.
Huge, right? Well, everyone's got student loans. In fact, I've even seen employers now, they're starting to hire people, and one of their enticements is, hey, we'll pay off your student loans. So a lot of people have these student loans, right? There's different ways that student loans are looked at, especially if they're in deferment. One example is most people have the understanding that student loans are required to pay 1% of the outstanding balance on a monthly basis, right? So if you got $100,000, then all of a sudden you're required to have $1,000 a month payment held against you for that student loan debt. A lot of people don't know it, but both rural development and also on the conventional side, Freddie Mac specifically, they will allow you to go 1/2 of 1% for your student loans. So instead of that $1,000 a month payment for that same $100,000 debt, now all of a sudden you're down to $500 a month. Might make all the difference in the world of being able to get approved for the amount of money you want to borrow to finally get that house. Really could make the difference between an approval and a denial. Just knowing which program to go with.
And see, I've actually had home buyers feel that, okay, my student loans are in deferment, so therefore that shouldn't be calculated.
Yeah, no.
And it's like, well, no, hold on. For one, call Dan because but you have to calculate because it's not something that's just going to go away.
Yeah.
It's basically deferred until you get out there and I forget exactly but I mean that could potentially kill your chances of getting a home.
Right.
So see, again, with the knowledge and experience, I mean, you really want to make sure that that's covered. So some home buyers ask, actually prior to even getting pre-approved, they'll ask me, okay, do you know someone? What are some tips to make sure that the home buyer is making the right choice of a lender versus just, hey, my cousin Joey does it, and I met him at a barbecue,
Right.
Which I really think again, I stated earlier, it's a huge purchase. You're purchasing a house, even if it's just $80,000. That's still an $80,000 house, right? Which we've done those deals, or $500,000. It doesn't matter. How can a home buyer make sure that they're choosing the right professional?
I think there's quite a few ways. So number one, skills and experience. That should come through when you talk to the person on the phone. If it's, I don't know the answer, but I can get it, let me go back and look it up, or let me call you. Maybe the person doesn't know their guidelines as well, and they're always kind of having to look it up. That might be a little tip that, well, maybe they don't have the experience of somebody who I want to work with, Another one is their personal performance, really. I mean, this comes down to more of just a personality trait, but when you call them, do they pick up the phone? I mean, so you're going to be working with this person and their company, their organization, their team.
Right.
You're going to be working with them for the next, 2 to 4 weeks on your transaction. And it's important that they have great skills of communication, that they respond to you in a timely fashion. I mean, if they do happen to miss your phone call, are they calling you back within 30 minutes or less? If I hear it all too often that the loan officers ghosted us. They've gone away, they're not around. I can never get a hold of them. I keep getting bounced to a different person. In some of the bigger institutions, you start off with one person, and then it's like an assembly line. Then you go to the next person, then you go to the next person, next person, and then by the time you get 2-3 people in, the person who's the third or fourth person isn't asking for things that the first person asked for, that the borrower probably already gave, that got lost somewhere in the transaction. So I would say communication is an excellent one for you buying a house, making sure that the person who you're working with is responsive. That's really big. Another one is social proof. Everyone searches Google. You look at everything. Look at somebody's reviews. It's not that hard. I mean, if you're looking for somebody, go to their website, or not even their website. Just go to Google. Type in the name of the company and see what other people are saying about them. You might be really surprised what some people have said.
That have been missed. I've seen. I'm like, did you see this?
Yeah, and that gives great social proof as to the how they've performed for other people, good and bad. So,
communication is key. On my side of the industry, right, the realtors, the number one complaint is that my agent started off strong and then they just disappeared. I have a question. And maybe it's 7 o'clock at night. Well, okay, we should always be available. Again, largest purchase of someone's life, typically. So, some awesome points there. I want to dive into this too, because I see this a lot. Sometimes home buyers are so focused on just the interest rate, right? Mm-hmm. Just like, okay, what's the rate? And either they don't go through the process to get an accurate rate, because every situation is different, right? Credit can get you a worse rate if your credit's bad.
Sure.
Vice versa. So when we see something, I don't know, in a commercial or whatever, it's all right, the rates are under 4% at this time. Well, okay, but you may not qualify for that. Everybody's focused on the rate. What are some other things that they should be focused on, not just, hey, what's my rate?
Costs,
right?
Costs. It's almost a little bit misleading when people spout off, here's a rate and an APR, because APRs are actually interpreted a little bit differently from lender to lender and their compliance teams. And basically, really, when it comes down to is, what is the rate you're getting for the loan and what are your costs? There's certain costs that are going to be the same no matter where you go. Your tax prorations back to the seller will be the same. Your homeowner's insurance, the borrowers choose, that has nothing to do with your lender. The escrow account setup, that's going to be the same no matter with what lender. But your third-party closing costs, from the lender's underwriting fee to the appraisal, the title closing costs, the recording fees, those things don't change. And in part of that is depending upon how high or low the underwriting fees are, and if there's any type of processing or anything like that. That set of closing costs, that's what I'm talking about. That third-party closing cost, that's going to be between your rate and your cost. That's the two most shoppable services when choosing a lender.
Right. I think so. I think people too need to really focus on that. Just like you said, Dan, it's like, somebody could offer me, 3%, but if I'm paying $10,000 in points and I'm buying it down and I'm not told, if I don't know any better, I'm only focused on 3%. Well, it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
And I've actually seen that, not to name names, but large institutions advertising these incredibly low rates, and it's like, how much are the fees?
Right.
Well,
they're dangling a carrot to try to get someone to pick up the phone and initiate the conversation, and then
call us. And which, I get it, it's marketing, but I just feel potential home buyers should not view that as concrete. Get all the facts, right? I want to dive back a little bit too in terms of pre-qual, right? We were basically talking about that. A lot of buyers that I've worked with have just tried to rush the process, right? They just want, okay, well, can't you just tell me because, or I pulled my own credit, and I know it's here, so can you just give me approval based off of that?
Credit scores are not the same on a consumer level as they are when you're applying for a car or a mortgage.
Right. I've always used this analogy, our industry, and that's if you're not feeling well, right? You go to the doctor, urgent care, your primary doctor, wherever. They don't just throw you a script. If they do, great, you have that form of relationship.
Yeah.
But you could potentially die. So you have to slow down the process, right? And you have to make sure that you have all the right information. Mm-hmm. And hey, okay, let's make sure. Because the last thing a realtor wants, last thing I want is taking my client out. Okay, we look at a bunch of houses and then, we didn't know that they didn't calculate your student loans.
Right.
Now you can't afford this. And that is a huge waste of time. So for somebody sitting down and making sure that they actually get approved, they actually show you documents, right? I mean, I think that's everything.
Yeah.
So awesome information. Can you think of anything else that would be beneficial? I mean, there's a lot of things. Again, it's boils down to knowledge, right? And I know from personal experience working with you is you actually educate them as well. So they don't just get approved, they get educated. And every client that I've sent Dan's way, this is turning into a video testimonial, right? Every client that I've sent Dan's way, they've said, wow, you know what? He didn't just get me approved, but he actually explained things, and then they felt less stressed.
Yeah.
Right? Education is key. You have to have the right knowledge, because again, you're buying the biggest purchase of your life, and I just think that's huge. So I think we'll end on that note, right? That's awesome information.
Yeah.
Thanks again for being here.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Really quick, Dan, how can they get in touch with you? How can they stay in touch with you? And we'll end the show on that note.
I think best number to get a hold of me is here at the office, and that number is 248-608-9120. And they can also email me at dlitvin@advantagelendingcorp.com. And if they like, I can put them on my monthly mailer, and I can get regular mailings with home tips, advice, seasonal things to do around the house as far as maintenance and everything like that. So,
I'm on that list, by the way. A couple things I'm like, that's how you do that, and I've done that, by the way.
It's nice, yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Guys, I appreciate you all watching. This concludes this episode. Big episode 100. Really wanted to have something special here. Yes, very excited. I'll have Dan back soon for some other topics, some more specific topics, but thanks again, Dan, for being here, sharing your expertise. Hire an expert. By the way, Dan doesn't just do purchase mortgages, he also does refinancing. So if you already have a home and you want to see if maybe you can better your mortgage situation, get in touch with Dan. That concludes this episode. Be sure to follow me on social media. Follow Dan on social media. Look him up. Otherwise, that's episode 100. Make it a great week.